back and welcome to my first currently reading video of 2025, which is super exciting. I generally do check-ins twice a week and I post these videos roughly weekly so you can see how my reading mood shifts, because often I'll set a February TBR, which I have recently posted, and that is like my overview, my snapshot of what I'm thinking of getting to during the month. And it's not always what I necessarily feel like, because I'm a huge mood reader and I'm starting to build up my TBR, like my physical TBR and my own audiobook TBR, but it's not happening as quickly as I would like it to. So in that case, I tend to borrow random stuff from my library, and that really supplements my to be read pile as well. And all of those holds come up randomly, so it could be anyone's guess what I end up picking up. Ironically, speaking of, I already have 2 audiobooks on hold from my library, and one of them is My Roommate is a Vampire, which I think is a drama comedy romance about a woman who moves into a new apartment and barely sees her roommate because he's actually a vampire, and then they fall for each other. Beyond that, I have no idea of a synopsis. I've just borrowed it because 1, it's 9 hours long, which will be read super quickly, and that's why I'm kind of leaning towards it in terms of what audio I pick up next. So I might do that one because I've got some chores to do at home. So if I can put an audiobook on while I do chores, it's like I am reading, which is a benefit. And then I've also got Sword Crossed, which is a male-male romance, but it's a period romance. So it's in like the 1900s potentially, and it's about this guy who is set up to get married to this woman, and while he's up at the altar, he doesn't want anyone to challenge him to like a sword fight. I don't know. Anyway, he hires the services of this sword master, and it's like a fraud sword master. He's a rogue. I think he's a mercenary or something. And so he's got that underdog, aloof edge. And I think it's about the guy and this sword guy falling for each other instead of the guy falling for his arranged marriage. Either way, I think it's going to be interesting, hopefully tantalizing. I really like the flirting and the tension between period romance, so I hope it builds to a good point, because I think that balance can be done super well, and I really hope I like the characters. Sometimes I'm like fully into a period romance, other times I go, I don't like the characters, I don't feel connected, this is boring, I'm out. So I hope that it's the first thing and not the second thing. Then embarrassingly, I have been currently reading this for more than a couple of weeks now, and that is The Song Rising. I've got 200 pages left of this. Realistically, it should technically not take me that long, and yet it is. And this one is an urban fantasy book, and it combines elements of our real world with the fantastical. So it's set in a world of Scion, London, and Scion are a repressive government, and they are repressing the abilities of the clairvoyant people. And so it's like there's a criminal underworld of clairvoyant people just trying to live and survive. And Paige, our main character, is one of these clairvoyants. In the first book, she's taken away to this camp and she needs to survive and train her gift. And then in the sequels, there's a rebellion brewing. And so now that she's part of this rebellion, we're following all the fallout of what's happened in book 1. And while I'm enjoying it, I guess I could say enjoying it, I haven't picked it up in a while because I don't feel as emotionally attached to it as I want to be. I think that's because there's a lot of detail and there's a lot of side characters, and because we're getting bogged down like the devil's in the detail, I'm not loving it as much as I hoped I would, which is unfortunate, because this is a great premise, a great setup, it's got great world building. But when I read these a couple of years ago, I remember kind of falling to the wayside a little bit when I got to the 3rd book in the series, and then I remember really loving The Mask Falling, which is the book after this. So hopefully this is just like a bit of a bump in the road and I end up liking the 4th book, because the 5th book comes out at the end of February, so I was hoping to have my reread done by then, but I think I might just aim to finish this and then see how I feel after. I don't know if I necessarily want to go into book 4 straight away, so I might just leave that to my random number generator, which I pick in every monthly to be read pile. So I might leave that to chance, and eventually I'll get The Dark Mirror, which is the 5th book. But yes, as for what I'm currently reading and planning to pick up, those are really the things. So this will be my physical read. I usually read an audiobook roughly at the same time. And then I've also been going, my February TBR, I don't know if I feel the vibe for it, which is weird because you'd think I'd want to read romance during February, you know, Valentine's Day and all that, but it's really not hitting me mentally the same, and I don't know why. Like, I feel a bit flat and I don't understand why. So I'm like, okay, well, I've got a few romances to read, specifically Roommate is a Vampire and Sword Crossed, so maybe those can be my romance audios, and I need to finish them quickly because they're library holds, so I need to get them out of the way. So I'll finish up those. And I've also got some fantasy audiobooks, and I don't know if I'm going to feel like starting them this week. Maybe I'll start them next week. Depends on how long I take to finish the 2 audios I've already got out from the library, so good job me. Anyway, those books are The Outcast Mage, which came out in January, and I think it's got a magical school in it, which was enough to, hook me. I love a magical school. And then the other one is the Powder Mage series, The Promise of Blood, and that's by Brian McKellen, maybe? And I feel like this is an older school kind of fantasy in the sense that it's got a chosen one, there is a quest and that kind of thing. And I love those tropes, so I hope it does justice to them. So that's why I wanted to try it out. I got gifted some Audible credits for Christmas, so I spent one of them on that book to give it a go. So that is my brain dump of this is what my to be read pile is, this current moment. Could that change in an hour? Could that change in a day? Absolutely it could. But for now, that is what my aspirations are. And then I'll check in later in the week and I'll let you know what I finished, what I stuck with, what I put down. Hopefully I don't put down anything because I want to enjoy everything I read, but we'll see what happens and I will let you know. Okay, I'm coming to you at the end of the week. I feel very dramatic today because I made a stance on the song Rising. And that is I read 10 more pages and I went, you know what? I don't want to read this anymore. So I DNF'd it. And that will include also The Mask Falling. Because why continue a series that I'm just not enjoying? Maybe I'd love The Mask Falling, maybe not, on my reread. I'm certainly not loving this. It's like a 2 stars. And I just find the writing style is not for me at all. It's really not evocative of emotion. There's so much going on that I just do not care about. And I thought this is holding up all my physical reading. It's been over a week into February already, and I haven't picked this up beyond reading 10 pages literally today because I knew I'd be filming this update and I wanted to give some kind of substance as to what was going on in here. And what's going on is that I'm not continuing anymore. So I'll take this off my to be read pile probably for good at this point. In good news though, I did finish My Roommate is a Vampire, and I was right in the sense that it was about this girl who is very broke and she's trying to find a room to rent, and the vampire who owns this house, he puts up a room for rent and it's way cheaper than it should be, and so she jumps at the opportunity even though she feels like it's a scam. But anyway, obviously she moves in, they start living together, they form a budding romance, and for the past 100 years he's been asleep, so he's got no idea as to what the human world looks like. So part of the reason that he's renting out the room is so he can have her as like a consultant to what life is like now. So it made for a very cute dynamic, but neither of them really lost, I guess, their agency and their confidence. They ended up trusting each other quite a bit, and I quite liked that dynamic. I also liked when they eventually got together how his vampireness and his immortality, for lack of a better word, was handled. Sometimes vampire books either just ignore it or gloss over it, and in this case it was actually discussed, which I appreciated. However, when there was the spicy scene, he was checking in with her consistently and she was saying like, yes, go ahead, do that, I like that. But when it was his turn, she shushed him, and that just made me feel uncomfortable. I was like, you could easily tell him what you plan to do, and it just made me go, I don't like that. In the end, it was okay, like it was enjoyable, but also forgettable. And I'd probably give it, I wanted to be nice and give it a 3 stars, but in 2025, I'm trying to be more harsh with my reading and my ratings. So I'll probably give it a 2.5. It's not something I disliked necessarily, but I just wasn't as excited to pick it up really. And I read it because I knew that I would be going in and out of my job. So on my commute, it would be just an easy audiobook to listen to. And it was a short audiobook as well, which I mentioned earlier. So that is why I finished it. And then I continued on to Sword Crossed, which I am thoroughly enjoying. And this one does follow Matty and Luca, and Matty is in an arranged marriage, but it's more of a business agreement with this woman because his family is covering it up at the moment, but they're really not well off financially. So they're just kind of pretending and hoping that her family is going to save him. And she seems like a genuinely good person and good character. She's just got no romantic interest in our main character, but they do have a trustworthy dynamic. So I quite like the way the relationships are being built up already. And I just love the intimacy already between Matty and Luca. So Luca looks like he's come from money before, but through a series of unfortunate events, which we're not completely privy to yet, he's had a fall from grace and he's now a sellsword and a con artist. And at the beginning of the book, he cons Matty, and then Matty realizes that he needs to hire him for his services to protect him in case anyone challenges him at the altar when he's getting married in this arranged marriage. And it's likely that someone who is an old flame of the woman will challenge them. But she's like, I don't know why this guy is challenging for my hand because I have no interest in him. So that's kind of hilarious. I was wrong though, it's not a historical fiction in like the 1900s at all. It's completely separate, it's in a fantasy world, everything is made up, and I actually like it a lot more for that reason. It's written on the cover of this book as being a romantasy, which I would agree with. It just feels like a romance, like a period romance, with a few things thrown in that make it feel a little bit fantasy, but otherwise the fantasy vibe is very minimal. I'd probably give the plot so far about a 3 stars, but I've only just started it, so it has room to grow, and I'd give the intimacy and the relationship between Matty and Luca a 4 stars. I'm really enamored by it, and I find them so sweet, and their tension in their own heads about each other and their attraction is so funny to read about because you know that they feel the same about each other. It's just so good. I can't wait to see this slow burn happen. So that's my reading for the week, and I'm hoping that I can finally start my reread of the second book in Robin Hobb's Farseer series now that I've finally finished with The Song Rising. It feels like I needed to free myself so that I could start something else physically, and I've finally done that. So now is the time to actually enjoy the books that I'm reading. But if you got this far in the video, leave me some green heart emojis in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.